Okay, welcome to our business podcast. And today, something a bit different. Any business can find itself in difficulty with cash flow issues caused by any number of reasons. And today, we're chatting to Ron Mookerjee, who is someone perhaps business owners should have in their contacts book, just in case. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Steve.
Now, explain what you do, because you call yourself a cash flow sustainability specialist. That's a long title.
Yes, it is, certainly. So I help businesses mainly from a cash flow perspective, dealing with outstanding debt, which is a combination of they're probably owed money by the clients, which means debt recovery. On the flip side, they probably owe money to the suppliers, so debt restructuring as well. With that is associated credit control processes as well as mediation, because a lot of businesses can foul play in not having proper processes put in place.
Yeah, exactly. So give us a bit of history, perhaps, first of all, about how you came to be in this industry.
Yes. It's actually my 19th year doing this.
Wow.
I started off working for Ford, repossessing people's cars, and then moving on to repossessing people's houses.
What a nice man you were.
Yes, no, exactly. It's taught me a lot. It's taught me to be resilient. And this is now what I do because I have an understanding of how creditors think.
So a lot of it, as you said, is being a mediator, perhaps someone that goes and sees people and is nice, talks nice and calmly without swearing at them. I'm sure you get a lot of language directed at you.
Yes, lots and lots of colourful language in the past, all sorts of abuse thrown at me, but sometimes you just have to take it with a pinch of salt and think, right, what's the job at hand? Let's get on with it and then try and find a resolution.
Yeah. So let's have some tips, I suppose, initially, when business owners are signing contracts. Maybe they're going into a lease agreement or a loan agreement. There maybe whatever, some top tips about maybe reading the documents carefully. What should they be looking to do?
It's interesting you mentioned this, Steve. At the minute, I'm working on a large variety of cases where businesses, they're always in a rush. Business owners are always in a rush. What they do, they just take a document, see where the signature is, and sign it, and off it goes. And when then things come tumbling down, i.e. a limited company's placed into liquidation or they're novating it across to a new one, the director of that business finds that they're personally liable for that debt. And it's simply down to the fact that they haven't read what's on the document. It could be something spurious, like a very small sentence which states, I'm personally liable for this debt. But because they thought, trade agreement, let me just sign it. They haven't actually read what they're signing up for. This happens all the time. One of the tips that I always and I highly strenuously ask anyone to do this: read what you're signing for. If you're unsure, ask the business that has given you the document, what do these terms mean? Look out for words that stand out with a hyphenated capital letter at the beginning, because that might mean something that it doesn't appear anywhere else on the document. That's really, really important. And if you're unsure, get advice. Some of the documents do actually have a statement which state, make sure you obtain legal advice. It's there for a reason. It's there because in the future, if you sign up for something, you can't say, but I didn't get any legal advice, or I wasn't given the opportunity. But if it's there in black, bold letters in a box stating that you have to go and get legal advice, then do it.
That should be one of those things at a school for business owners, shouldn't it, really? Lesson 1, don't sign up for any personal guarantees, especially on your house, if it's loans involved or whatever. Avoid those at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of businesses just do exactly that without thinking about it.
And we assume that costs of credit will be tiny now with interest rates at 0.25 or whatever.
But tell me about it. I mean, the government decreasing it doesn't necessarily mean that that's it. The costs will go down. A lot of businesses, they will put you up to these spurious charges. They'll increase interest on your payments by double figures. If you're not too careful, you could literally be signing a lot of money away, and you are legally bound by whatever you're signed to.
The other thing, of course, is when you're signing up for a new tender, new contract, make sure you know what the invoicing procedure is. We've all seen these procedures. Oh, you need to have a certain PO from Mavis, an account who only works on Fridays, and then you call Mavis on a Friday and she's not even there. That's probably a big note, isn't it, as well? Make sure you know what the invoicing process is.
It's interesting you say this, Steve. I had a client, 90-day terms. So my client agreed to this, 90-day terms. And what they forgot to follow through is that this particular supplier of theirs had one of their own clients had a PO process. But because the PO process wasn't followed through on, would you believe that when it was coming up to 90 days and my client wanted him paying on this invoice, they couldn't. So what they had to do is they had to credit that invoice, reissue another invoice, put the PO, the purchase order number, on that invoice, and then wait another 90 days to get it paid. So in actual effect, they've just signed away 180 days, 6 months worth of credit to their client, who then paid them on the 7th month, which is ridiculous when you're doing a piece of work, a service, or you're delivering some sort of a product, and then you're faced with this drama.
It's obviously difficult as a small business and you're doing everything yourself. Do you ring up the company and say, just checking my invoice has gone through to accounts, can I just check when it will be paid? Is that seen to be annoying, or is that good practice, do you think?
It's very good practice. I was actually speaking to my business partner yesterday. His name's Martin. And he said he had a client where all they did was send invoices out via one of these accountancy packages and just wait for that accountancy package to chase the debt. There was nothing proactive from the client side of things. It was more reactive. I'll just wait for the money to come in. I've just made a sale and I'll just wait now and just twiddle the thumbs. No, look, as a business owner, you need to ensure that you've got good processes put into place in your business. Without those processes, then you're kind of stabbing into the dark of, I want to get paid at such a point in time when without having those processes, without having those reports put in place, you just don't know when your cash is going to come in. Cash is key, as they say. A sale is not a sale until cash is into your account. And that's what I always implore.
The other thing, I suppose, as a small business is if you win a big contract and you're great, this is cool, but an example might be, say you're a kitchen fitter, I don't know, for a big building firm. So great, lots of kitchens to supply, and then you suddenly find all your eggs are in one basket and you've only got one client essentially that you're doing all the work for. That's a very dangerous position to find yourself in, isn't it? But how do you balance that? Because you want the work, but you also want to avoid having all your eggs in that one basket.
It's interesting you say this, Steve, because I actually had one of my clients in the past. They were a partnership, and they used to. Do you remember HMV?
Oh yes.
Yes. So who doesn't? So they used to manufacture CD cases for HMV. When HMV went bust into administration, they themselves found that they were just left out to dry because they just put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Thought, we're sorted for life. It's with HMV. They're just going to bankroll us until our retirement. But because they were dealing in such big numbers and they were personally liable for this as a partnership, they never thought about setting up a limited company. So they themselves were personally liable. And without bankruptcy, they couldn't really move forward. But with bankruptcy, they lost everything. They lost the house, they lost the cars. They were elderly. I wouldn't say elderly. They were late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, yes, they did have a good life, but then they were just left to pick up the pieces to then be able to start again with nothing.
Yeah. So give us then some examples of people that you've helped either restructure stuff or you've managed to have repayment plans put in place. Have you got any maybe local examples of that?
Yes. So I have one not too far from Uxbridge itself. It was a ladies' retailer, and just bless her. This time last year, she was running a very successful ladies' retailer, turning over £300,000 a year. And on some months, she'd be turning over between £15,000 to £20,000 a year. It's a seasonal business. Some months we were very quiet, and unfortunately that then took a toll on the amount of money that she could pay to her retailers. What happened on a couple of occasions is that she had a business bailiff walk in saying, right, you haven't paid your business rates. Your business rates are what was it, £8,000 at that time. And they said, right, we're going to take all the stock. So they took the stock, repossessed it, and she... bless her, walked in and literally her shop was empty.
Oh no.
What did she do? She then went out to wholesalers, to other retailers, restocked her shop. Do you believe it? 2 weeks later, HMRC walk in.
Oh no.
HMRC was managed by her accountant, so she thought everything is being resolved, everything's been dealt with. No, you're £22,000 in arrears, and we want that now. So they've taken more stock and literally forced her out of business.
Oh no.
So here I am. I'm now looking at her issues. She's got just shy of £100,000 worth of debt that she owes to her suppliers, her creditors, and is left with me to try and sort her out. She is a sole trader, which means that she's personally responsible. Bankruptcy is out of the question because she owns her own property.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, how do I go about it? So I've asked her to go and get a job, which she now has. She's now earning around about £30,000 a year, and she's paying off that £100,000 debt. So just imagine how long it will take to get that paid off.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of help that I do. Another example is a business owner. So it could be any business owner. This individual's in the construction industry. He's turning over just shy of £2 million a year. Unfortunately, he's tried to get a loan, but hasn't been successful because what he's done is he's gone out and got different loans. When his business was making a lot of money, he was running it successfully. Unfortunately, some circumstances took place which meant that he had to take his eyes off the business. One of them was his son was ill. Within about a month of his son being ill, he had a car accident because of the stress of his son being ill. And because he was away from the business, it literally meant that he just didn't know what was going on, and he lost some big lucrative contracts. Cut a long story short, he's now indebted personally to £500,000 of loans, etc. So he's come to me saying, Ron, what can you do to sort it out? One thing I ask all individuals who are running a business has some sort of a loan form, never ignore your creditors. They are there to help you. Believe it or not, they are there to help you. And there is this emotional shame that comes across a lot of us. I've been there myself, I understand, but you have to deal with the problem. If you don't deal with the problem, it just gets worse. There's something called DSO, which is Day Sales Outstanding. And what creditors look for is how far down the line do they have to look before they actually say, right, we've given you 3 or 4 months worth of time to come back to us, and you've not come back to us, we're now going to proceed with action. And some of that could mean bankruptcy or winding up against your company.
Yeah, so good advice. Don't bury your head in the sand. go and talk to people, get you involved to mediate or find some kind of restructuring program.
Absolutely.
But as a small business, credit control can take up all your time, can't it? It can be draining, calling up these people and chasing invoices.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'd say as a small business owner, because you're doing everything, you might have an accounts assistant that walks in, 1 or 2 days a week to help you facilitate the process. But otherwise, it could also be that you don't have the time to chase it yourself. So you could potentially outsource it to myself and to us. Me and Martin, we are key in being able to help train your credit control staff, your accounts team, to ensure that they are best placed to be able to deal with any issue that comes in. I'll give you an example. So we deal with a ledger of debts, and it could be straight debt chasing, picking up the phone and saying, right, you owe me the money, we're going to pay, and then it's paid. But then if there's not a process in place in what you do when there's a dispute, or it could be there's many reasons why businesses are not paid on time. One of the reasons could be, an invoice is out for authorization, or it's signed off once a month.
Yeah.
So you've got your normal 30-day terms, say for instance, but then when you start chasing outside of those 30-day terms, it could be, don't worry, it's with it needs to have a 2 director sign off. First director signed it, but it's with the second director, and he will sign it, but he's just on leave at the minute. Okay, when's he back from leave? In about 2 weeks' time. So you're waiting, and before you know it, your 30-day terms has turned into 60-day terms. It should be, you should have a process in place where you're following up just before the expiry of those 30-day terms. So the kind of things that I ask business owners to do is make sure that your client has an invoice. So yes, it's been sent out by an accountancy package, but have they actually received it? Does it actually say read in that accountancy package? If it doesn't, call them up or send another email to them attaching the invoice and saying, I've seen that you've not read the invoice. I've not received anything to confirm that you've received it. So here is a copy. And follow up just before it expires and say, look, my invoice is due this Friday. Or next Monday or next Tuesday, whatever day it is, can you confirm that you're going to pay it?
Yeah.
It's just a simple word, simple sentence.
And I presume that credit controllers and accounts staff at the other company are used to receiving those kind of calls. It's not a rude thing to phone someone up and just inquire on the status of your invoice.
Absolutely that. I mean, the thing is, you want to hold this relationship.
Yeah.
Relationships are key with any kind of business that you do with one another. But then you're doing something, you've worked your guts out, so to speak.
Yeah.
You've given your all in doing that service, all that product delivery. And then when you're not getting paid on it, you're just scratching your head thinking, what did I do wrong? You haven't done anything wrong. It's in your follow-up process for credit control.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a process in place.
It's interesting because as a small business, you might put on the bottom of your invoice payment terms 30 days. You might put on there payment terms 7 days. But does that really make any difference to a big company that has their own process? They might just say, we ignore that. We just pay 90 days or we pay 60 days or whatever. Can you really enforce that at all?
You can enforce it. There is actually a legislation called the Late Payment of Commercial Debts and Interest Act, which a lot of businesses should either put that in their express terms, or you don't necessarily have to because it's an implied legislation. And what that allows a business owner to do is, say if it's over a period of time and you chase for payment, you can actually put clauses into the bottom of your invoices by saying, if you don't pay by X date, then we will start charging you interest and late payment penalty clauses.
Yeah.
So at the minute, thanks to the recent drop in interest rate, it's gone down to 0.25%. But what the late payment legislation actually states is that you can charge 8% over the Bank of England base rate.
Oh.
And depending on the value of the invoice, you have a sliding scale of 40, 70 or £100 per invoice that you can add on top of that as well, just to kind of add on the numbers in terms of you having to wait for payment of this invoice. So why should you be penalised? You can actually add this legislation on, so therefore you get paid quicker and on time.
That's an interesting one. So how do you actually charge? Are you doing an hourly fee, or are you taking a percentage of the recovered money? How does that work?
Okay, so Steve, there are effectively 4 services that I offer, 5 services, but 4 services mainly. Debt recovery. We don't deal with 1 or 2 small debts. We deal with a ledger of debts. So the minimum value of ledger of debts that we would deal with is if you have £80,000 outstanding. What we do is we charge a deposit, which is then taken off the first £10,000 that we recover for you. And then there's a sliding scale of commission thereafter.
Yeah.
That's the debt recovery perspective. Debt restructuring, I'm doing a lots and lots of these at the minute. And it's on a retainer fee split over a 12-month period. So let's just say, for argument's sake, let's keep it simple. Steve, I owe you £30,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
And there's a supplier, a specialist who wants to charge for his time. So I charge 10%. So it's say £3,000 split over 12 months. Because a business owner is already struggling with that cash. They're thinking to themselves, oh my God, how am I going to afford this guy to then be able to pay off my creditors or come to an arrangement with my creditors? Also deal with lots and lots of disputes at the minute, specifically around contractual law related to personal guarantees. I charge a half-day rate. Once again, it depends on the complexity of it. It's going to be between £350 to £500 for half a day.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And lastly, when we're doing a review of a business credit control process, we look to see what kind of terms and conditions that they have in place. Is it up to date? Does it incorporate data privacy policy, GDPR? What kind of payment processes that they have in place? Terms and conditions resulting in that as well. And we looked at bolstering that. So that's that bolt-on service that comes as part of credit control processes that we offer to our clients.
Fantastic. So let's have a look at your website, shall we? We are going to ronmookerjee.com. And there's someone with a head in their hands. They should have called you.
Yeah, they should have called me, exactly.
There's all the services you offer. So click on the relevant one for you.
Yep.
And you're on LinkedIn, of course.
Yep.
Ron Mookerjee. So as I was saying at the start, Ron is someone you should have in your contacts book at all times. You never know. And just a summary of the advice, I suppose, we're saying always read the documents that you're given. Don't just sign. Watch out for personal guarantees.
Absolutely.
Try to avoid eggs in one basket. That's always good advice, isn't it? Don't bury your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Call you.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch out for personally guaranteeing anything. Clauses in contracts that say, your home is at risk or whatever, the usual
stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
And make sure you're clear what the invoice process is when you're invoicing a company. Maybe it is that you have to call Mavis on a Friday afternoon between 2 and 4.
When you want a beer in the pub, absolutely. But no, you have to call Mavis instead.
I mean, some companies are good, aren't they? Some companies, you do have this invoice portal that you upload your invoice to. You get a nice purchase order. You can see when it's due for payment. But we all have experienced companies where they do everything in their power to delay paying an invoice.
Absolutely, yeah.
The whole phone process, the whole email process is based on delaying payment, I'm sure.
Yes, there is. And with one last stat, the UK is owed £26.8 billion in unpaid and late invoices. That's a staggering amount.
Yeah.
So make sure you have some processes put in place in your business through either myself, Ron Mookerjee, to be able to help you facilitate that process.
Ron, it's been fabulous talking to you today. Some good advice, I think, and I shall put your number in my phone just in case.
You never know. Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you.